Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well. We're having a rough one as the entire world is fighting against me uploading a video right now. But hey, we're here and we're going to make it through. Hopefully, this video isn't late. I'm recording it way later than I normally do, but we're here. So let's get into it. Hopefully all you guys are doing well, though. If you're new here, please subscribe as we are on our way to 500 subscribers, and although support would be greatly appreciated. Outside of that, though, let's get into the news. Moving on into the Trump administration segment today, the first topic we have is Harvard has beat Trump in a lawsuit. A judge has ordered the Trump administration to unfreeze $2.2 billion in federal funding to Harvard. U.S. District Judge Allison D. Burroughs said all freezes and terminations of funding to Harvard made pursuant to the freeze orders and termination letters on or after April 14, 2025 are vacated and set aside. The order proves the administration claims of Harvard being plagued by anti-Semitism, saying defendants used it as a smokescreen to target the country's premier universities. The Trump administration has announced it will move to appeal this egregious decision. There's a difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. This administration and so many others use and weaponize the idea of anti-Semitism, making it impossible to say anything negative about Israel, who kills millions in genocides continuously. It's not anti-Semitic to speak against the death of millions, just as so many Harvard students have done and are going to continue to do. Free Palestine, fuck Donald Trump. In other news, medical groups are calling for RFK Jr. to step down from his position. 21 medical groups and public health organizations are demanding that RFK step down from his position as head of the health department. The statement came from 21 organizations and around 1,000 former and current health staffers at the department's Health and Human Services, warning that it continuously endangers the nation's health. That he continuously endangers, HHS Communications Director Andrew Nixon said in a statement that Kennedy had been clear that the CDC has been broken for a long time and that they believe they were restoring it to make America healthy again. RFK should absolutely 100% step down. He is attacking the health of all Americans and putting us all at risk. Isn't that great? His beliefs on vaccines and so many other things are going to increase the likeliness of death and sickness around the country. I believe earlier today he even said that America was one of the sickest nations on earth. That's not the case. The United States is nowhere near that list. I hate to break it to you, but thankfully that is the truth. Now at least, until RFK destroys the health of this country, it's going to be the case. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and it's crazy that they make outrageous claims like that that are completely false day after day. It's not just Trump; it's his entire administration. In other news, oh boy, I have a lot to say with this one. Are you guys ready? Strap yourselves in. The Trump administration is looking at banning transgender people from owning guns. After the Minneapolis church shooting, senior Justice Department officials are looking at limiting transgender people's rights to possess firearms. These talks were described as preliminary, but built on ideas that are gaining loads of popularity in conservative media. I'm sure we've all heard about it, the new Fox News rhetoric that transgender people are committing all of these shootings that they're not actually committing. This would be another attack on the rights of transgender people by this administration, as they have already prevented them from serving in the military, along with having federal prisons send trans people to prisons as their birth-assigned gender. I have a lot to say here, as mentioned. As mentioned many times before, I am a registered hunter in the state of California. I have spent years of my life hunting waterfowl and upland game, whether that be ducks, whether that be pheasants, geese, birds, kind of things like that. I've spent my entire life around guns as well. You can say since a very young age, I have been around guns. So I feel like I'm very qualified to talk about this subject. So let's look at the numbers. Since the year 2000, 2 transgender people have committed mass shootings. That's right, the number 2. 1 + 1 = 2. Now how many white men have committed these shootings? 56%. 56%. This isn't about protecting schools or children. It's about attacking people who live day-to-day lives, just like you do. It is an attack on one of the smallest minorities in the world that literally does nothing to impact your day-to-day day-to-day life. They do absolutely nothing to impact you. If the government really cared about protecting children, and if MAGA really cared about protecting children, they would, for one, stop indoctrinating their own children, but they would also support the idea of making it harder for everyone in the United States to own guns. And that's coming from someone who has spent their entire life around guns. Like, it is insane that, and a massive problem at that, that anyone can go into a Walmart and just buy a gun. It is in the same store that I am sure many of you in the United States buy your groceries or at least do a fair amount of shopping at. You can also buy a firearm depending on the state you're in. That is absolutely insane. And in no other country in the world is that the case. Nowhere else in the world is a grocery store selling you a gun. It is genuinely insane that we live in a country where that is the case. This isn't about protecting children. It is about attacking a group of people that do literally nothing except continuously get fetishized by all of these people within that group. Genuinely, I am sure I will receive multiple DMs on TikTok because this was the subject of my last video. I get around 10 DMs a day from people. It is absolutely sick and disgusting that we continuously have to hear and read about this bullshit that's attacking people who literally do nothing but sit there and exist rather than feeling like shit and wanting to kill themselves. We want people to kill themselves and actually struggle with mental health issues rather than being able to not only get the care and the assistance that they need, but actually like living their life. It should not be that big of a deal that somebody wants to feel good about themselves when they wake up in the morning. Yet so many people are actively against that. And the people who are the worst fucking people on planet Earth. And they deserve to rot in whatever form of hell that they believe in. In other news, moving on into our Washington, D.C. segment as we, shift over, D.C. is suing the Trump and the military for the National Guard deployment. Washington, D.C. has filed a lawsuit against Trump and the military over the deployment of the National Guard in the nation's capital. The lawsuit said Trump has run a roughhood over the fundamental tenet of American democracy. The military should not be involved in domestic law enforcement, or that the military should not be involved in domestic law enforcement. Excuse me. Attorney General of the District Brian Schwalb, who filed the lawsuit, called the deployment unnecessary and unwanted, along with being dangerous and harmful to the city's residents. This is great news, and it's the truth. The National Guard's deployment in D.C. is unnecessary and an attack on the city's sovereignty as a whole. This administration needs to be stopped from attacking these cities and their ability to function in day-to-day things. As we've seen, vehicles from the military have caused car accidents, roads have been blocked off, traffic has been creative. It is, a hindrance on the people living in D.C., and it needs to be stopped. Anyways, moving on into our segment about the Epstein files. The first part of the Epstein files has been released. The House Oversight Committee investigating the Epstein files has released its first batch of files related to the case. The committee released 33,295 pages of records, which has been called the first batch. Many documents are public filings related to the criminal cases involving Epstein and Maxwell, so there's not much new information that we've received. Democratic Representative Robert Garcia of California called the release a cover-up due to a majority of them being public knowledge already. There is essentially nothing new that came out of this. They are, pretending to give the public information and pretending to give the public what they want when it gives them nothing at all. It's time to listen to the victims and not the lawmakers, because clearly the lawmakers aren't going to tell us what we should be hearing. In other news, there was an Epstein survivor rally yesterday. Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplices held a rally yesterday with as many as 100 victims in attendance. This came as survivors spoke out about what happened to lawmakers as they pushed to have the files released. Survivors floated the idea of releasing their own list. They also linked Epstein to Trump, along with so many other topics. This was great and not only helped build awareness, but, educated so many people on what actually happened. I watched some live stream and I watched some clips of it as well. And, it was really interesting to see so many people talk and have that opportunity. I hope we get to see more of this because these people should be the one that we trust when it comes to this information. In other news, Epstein survivors will work to compile a list of people involved with Epstein since Trump won't release his. Survivors of the Jeffrey Epstein, Lisa Phillips, has suggested victims could create their own list of people involved with Epstein if the Department of Justice does not release more of the documents. Phillips told reporters several of us, Epstein survivors, have been discussing creating our own list of names. She added, "We know the names. Many of us were abused by them." This is big news and would confirm so many things that this administration refuses to do day after day. Anyone in the Epstein files should be in prison, no question, no matter what. These people are scum of scum, worst of worst, and do not deserve to live their lives freely. Release the files. Anyways, moving on to our other news segment, we have quite a few topics left as Democrats overperform in a Florida special election. Florida Democrats have increased their numbers after winning two state special elections. On Tuesday night, Rashawn Young and LaVon Bracy Davis won their elections in the Florida House of Representatives and Senate. Young won with 75% of the vote in the House District 40, as Bracy Davis won in District 15 with 73% of the vote. These districts are blue districts, but both did not support Kamala Harris very much, or if at all. This is great news as we're continuously seeing Democrats, win these elections in large numbers, which is a great thing. 75% is a large amount of numbers, especially for a red state like Florida, even if it's a blue district. It might be a whole lot easier to take the House during midterms than I personally originally thought. And I really hope that's the case. I think overall it's looking like Democrats have a lot better of a shot than most of us probably thought. In other news, Florida is looking to remove all vaccine mandates. The state of Florida will be eliminating all Florida vaccine mandates. State Surgeon General Joseph Lupito said in an announcement, all of them, every last one of them is wrong, drips in disdain and slavery. He said these mandates were wrong and immoral, continuing, who am I as a government or anyone else? Who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in their body? I don't have the right. I don't understand how a guy can say some shit like this and still be against things like gender confirming care. Who is he to tell people what they can and cannot do with their bodies? On a more topic related note, vaccines save lives, and so many are necessary for not only protecting you but the people around you from getting sick. Just because you get an illness from a vaccine that is supposed to protect you from it doesn't mean it didn't work. And if we see a rise in things like polio or measles or so many other things throughout the continuous years because people refuse to vaccinate their children, don't be shocked at all. It's going to be truly unfortunate. In other news, talking about vaccines, these topics are really flowing together nicely. I did not plan that out. States are creating a vaccine alliance. In response to a shift in guidance from the CDC, health officials in California, Washington, and Oregon have formed a West Coast Health Alliance. The goal is to ensure residents remain protected by science, and not politics. This was done in a joint announcement by the three states' governors, and the alliance will provide recommendations to residency on immunizations and ensure public gets credible information on vaccine safety and efficiency. This is great news, and I really hope more states get the opportunity to join or are at least presented with the opportunity. Blue states need to fight back in every way, not just to protect, the people, but to protect the entire country, really. If this administration continues to target vaccines, we are going to see a rise in health issues, just as I mentioned in the last topic, and it's going to be bad. Things like COVID are going to reemerge. Things like all of these diseases that shouldn't even still be around in the first place are going to emerge, and it's going to be really scary. Anyways, moving on into our final topic for tonight, sheriff departments around the country are speaking out against the Trump administration. Local sheriff departments around the country are having issues with the Trump administration due to their push to hire local law enforcement to work for ICE. More than a dozen U.S. sheriffs and law enforcement associations have complained that ICE is trying to poach deputies and officers. ICE utilized email lists provided by sheriff departments to try and convince people to join, noting things like hiring bonuses and benefits. If you don't live in a rural area, you probably don't see sheriffs very often. And honestly, as somebody who grew up in a rural area, you really don't see sheriffs very often. These departments are, a lot smaller than police forces, and, depending on your area, a lot smaller, and taking officers away from that really impacts their ability to do their job, which should be the case when many of them already do not have many people working for them. With that being said, though, hopefully you all enjoyed today's episode. It has definitely been a very interesting past few days. Sorry for not having one up yesterday. I was extremely sick. That was not going to happen. Again, sorry. But outside of that, hopefully all you guys are doing well. If you're new here, please subscribe. As mentioned, we are on our way to 500 subscribers on YouTube. I would really appreciate all of your support. If you're on Substack, please also consider subscribing. All funds go to me. They will help me pay for the things that I need to pay for in college, like food, like clothing, like all of that. But if not, you can always subscribe for free. I truly do appreciate all forms of support on this content. It means the world to me. Thank you all so much for watching today's episode, and I will see you all